Hello, and welcome to a new segment here at the Filmmakers Compass podcast. We are calling this Movie Remake Time, and the goal is we're going to be watching all the remakes, sequels, and reboots of your favorite movies, and then D-Man and myself, CP, will be asking the question, who did it better? D-Man?
Well, I'm pretty excited. It's actually ironic you brought up, sequels and remakes and everything, because even though it's movie remake time, today's episode we're actually focusing on one that is a sequel but kind of a reboot for a franchise. So I'm really excited to talk about these movies.
Me too, dude.
Yeah, I just watched them, and that's kind of the fun of doing these podcasts is I get to watch all these movies that I've already seen, go watch them again, right? And then watch them with like a curious eye.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun, and I'm enjoying doing the podcast, but I'm going to throw it over to you. Let's hear what movies we're going to be comparing today.
Well, okay, these are two of my favorite movies, and if you know me at all, then you know I am a sucker for any Fast and Furious movie. So we will be comparing the original movie, The Fast and the Furious from 2001, with the major reboot in the franchise, Fast 5 from 2011.
Now, can we make note that if you actually look right around Fast and the Furious 4 or whatever it's called, and Fast 5, I think, was it Furious 4 and then Fast 5? Or
no, 4 was Fast and Furious.
Yeah, I don't even know how they how they number these. I think later it was F7. They didn't even have Fast and the Furious.
No, that was just Furious.
I don't even know how they title all these. So I kind of wanted to give just a little background for anybody that's, caught some of them, watched them all, or they're unsure of exactly which one is which one. So obviously everyone knows Fast and the Furious 1, it introduced street racing culture to, the big screen, and, was a real game changer at the time. It brought both Vin Diesel and Paul Walker to A-list celebrity status. Yep. It was pretty awesome. Fast 5 is actually where the series turns from a focus on actual street racing to action movie making, apex. It's the top of the action movies that come out.
It brings forth the ensemble cast. It focuses at the kind of globe trotting with the action stunts at their extremist. And in fact, there is virtually no car racing at all in the latter half of the series.
Yeah, they still drive cars. It's I think even in this movie, Hobbs makes a comment of absolutely under no conditions let them get in cars.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, the whole street racing element is essentially removed. Even the whole racing. I think the very, very end of Fast 5, Paul Walker's character is hey, let's do one more race. But they don't even show it. They just have him say it.
No, again, in fact, when they're in Brazil in Fast 5 and they're going to win cars in street racing, they roll up and then we cut away to them after they've won their cars, and we don't see them race cars at all, which in 4, there's still a little element of that. Before 5 is just we're moving on. This is a totally different thing.
3 Tokyo Drift is all about street racing. And then so is 2. They race, I think they're down in Florida in that
Miami.
One. And they actually do a lot of racing in that movie. So I don't know. It's interesting because, when we compare these two, I guess what we're really looking at is the franchise itself took on a new identity. Like you said, it's the ensemble cast globetrotting action movie now, and it's not really the, street racing franchise anymore. So when we compare them, what we're really looking at, I think, is, even though it's not a, hard remake, what do we like? What do we don't like? And which version do we like the most? And that's where we'll kick it off.
All right.
So I'll go ahead and throw it over to you. I'm curious, of those two, what were the biggest differences you saw that really stood out?
Well, when you watch The Fast and the Furious, as you said, it's kind of about that underground outlaw street racing culture. They go to race wars. It's about the lifestyle. It's very LA centric. In fact, so much to the point that I remember as a high schooler, watching Fast and Furious movies, that was something that you're oh, wow, people live that way. That's so cool and dangerous.
I know. It was fun.
Fast Five is just like, you know what? We're going to the ensemble cast. We're just going to take all these characters that you love and we're going to do something over the top. And in Fast Five, the over the top thing is they're actually robbing a bank vault that is in a police station.
But it's
Brazil.
Like gangsters' money, though.
Oh yeah, it's drug dealer money, so it's okay. They can do it. They're the good guys.
Yeah.
They even get the endorsement of the U.S. government technically to pull off the heist.
Like bank robbers, they're like robbing drug lords. But yeah.
And it's really weird because obviously, you know, I mean, you know me, I love anything with Paul Walker. I love anything with Vin Diesel since I was,
you are a big fan.
Oh, huge fan. Since I was 14, I've had a mad crush on Jordana Brewster. So for me, like there is something in my life that will always be attached to this movie. But that said, I think that Fast Five is just a lot more fun. They essentially say we're going to blow up what we did and we're giving the audience what they want.
Well, I mean, the biggest difference for me, like right off the bat, is just action. I mean, I think in the first 20 minutes of Fast Five, there's actually more action than there is in all of Fast and Furious. And that was hands down the most notable difference for me was right away. I mean, you could just tell that change in tone. So obviously we'll keep that in mind as we're taking a look at a couple different elements from the film, but yeah, that really stood out. And I have to agree with you. I mean, Jordana Brewster, you know, as a young teenager, it's like, how could you not? So anyway, I guess if we want to, you know, start talking about the film a little bit, I wanted to ask you, of the two, which one do you think has had more of a cultural impact?
Well, I think that's definitely the first one. I mean, for one, it built a franchise which is going to spawn, you know, about 10 films, and I think has plans to go to at least 11. So
that's crazy.
That shows the impact of these movies. But two, I mean, obviously, when I was a little older after these movies had come out, I remember the immediate impact in the sense that, you know, as a teenager in San Diego, following the release of these movies within the, you know, 6 or 7 years after the first Fast and Furious, there was this huge explosion of the underground street racing culture.
Oh yeah. Everyone had lights on their cars. Everyone had, you know, fins on the back. I even remember my neighbor, we watched Fast and the Furious. He had like a Saturn car and he got like rims for it and
stuff. Put a spoiler on it.
Have fun, man. But that car better not be in the next Fast and the Furious.
Yeah, it kind of rebooted the concept of sort of that sort of car culture, I think, for our generation, which obviously like it was a much bigger issue for our parents, I think, kind of that 70s and 80s thing. But for us following this, it kind of showed the idea that you didn't need a muscle car. You didn't need something flashy. You could take a basic Honda Civic and make it into something special.
True. And like I said, I mean, it definitely launched some careers, the first one. And it really left a lasting impression, I think, you know, for its time. The movie holds up surprisingly well, but also, you know, it's one of those classics that I think will be around. You know, I don't think that movie will fade into the background. I think because the franchise has continued and all of that, it's quite impressive. Now, I will make note, though, that as a successful film franchise, I think Fast Five was the first one that actually took the Fast and the Furious as an entire franchise back to like mega blockbuster level. And part of that is due to the ensemble cast. So you have people of all different nationalities and backgrounds all coming together. And then the globetrotting really set the tone for this kind of, you know, right now with the expansion of like, you know, the whole movie theaters and, you know, movie studios trying to get, you know, movies into bigger audiences,
international audiences and things like that.
Yeah. Like, so its effect there is massive. I mean, it's, you know, other than having an already established property in which, right, like something like Harry Potter does really well internationally, but that's because everyone knows the books. If you think about Fast Five, it is a movie franchise. This is not based on anything else. And its success internationally is remarkable. And I think that's due to a lot of the elements that came together in Fast Five.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
And then, yeah, if we're going to break down the differences in the movie, then let's go ahead and talk about the effects. So one of the things that really stood out to me, and this just right off the bat, I could tell because I was singing along in the Fast and the Furious, the music was a really big part. It was, it's in all these different scenes, like little things like when Vince comes to, go get Paul Walker after he's talking to Jordana Brewster. And it's like playing that music, and then it's like, watch your back. And he like throws the punch. And I was like, I remember that. Like, you
Yeah.
can't help, like, the way it's used is really, really well done. And I do have to give a little nod to they played Area Codes by Ludacris. And even though he didn't make an appearance in the first movie, he is there.
He is.
So, yeah, he did make it.
Very true.
Know. The other thing is action. And I'm going to throw it over to you for the action because I know this action is your thing. You love Sylvester Stallone. You love Vin Diesel. So let's hear it.
Well, obviously the first one is not, I don't think, when Rob Cohen was doing the first one, he was thinking of it as an action franchise. In many ways, it almost is more of a coming of age high school teen movie with fast cars and the hijacking of the semi trucks than an actual action movie. That being said, I mean, I think probably the epitome of it is actually the quarter-mile race they do at the end of the first one with the where they're racing to get across the train tracks before the train comes.
Right, and it's almost ironic that the biggest kind of action sequence or stunt in the first one is a practical stunt. It's a real stunt. You've ever seen the behind the scenes? They have 7 or 8 cameras to capture all those angles. And it's, they actually use all those. It was funny when I was watching it because I knew that they actually flipped through
started counting.
Yeah, I was like, oh shoot, they really used them all. But yeah, it's funny because the franchise has now become known for totally unrealistic, action sequences. They're jumping onto planes and
well, and it's kind of funny because obviously Fast 5 sort of ratchets that all up to the next level. But the first stunt they do in Fast 5 actually involves a train where they are stealing cars off of a train. So it was kind of a nice throwback to the original and saying okay, we're picking it up and just letting the audience know that we're ramping it up. This is, going to be more than you're expecting.
Sure. And, the thing is with the action sequences, they're bigger, they're better, almost in every way. Right. But there is, it's funny because you look back at the first one and it's even when I think of it, I think of those scenes where everybody's standing around, right. And they're talking about their cars and this and that. I never think of that movie as a detective movie or undercover cop.
Yeah.
That's just not what I associate
in fact, I think the kind of the scene that really it boils down to is when you're talking about with Hector and Ja Rule and when they do that first street race that ends up the cops show up afterwards and kind of it sets the tone of the story in motion.
Yeah. I will say
the epitome of it.
I will say hands down, the first one is way more quotable.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, it's not even close. You never had your car. It doesn't matter if you win by an inch or a mile, winning's winning. Mm-hmm. And they have all these things that I'm no, those are movie quotes now. If you made a list of top movie quotes, of 100, there's a chance Fast and the Furious could be on there because they're so quotable. And I really can't think of any. I just watched Fast 5 and I can't think of anything that really stood out as quotable per se.
No, and I think the most memorable quotes from Fast 5 are really tying back into, again, the themes of Fast 1, when Brian and Mia show up and Vince calls him the Buster.
Yeah.
Or when, Vin Diesel's 97 references to family.
Right.
Which he starts in the first one, right? That's the stuff that you as an audience, you hear and you're yes, that's Fast and the Furious right there. You got it.
And yeah, so, I mean, I think it's a little bit more quotable. I think the music was definitely a bigger and more integral factor in the first one than it wasn't in Fast 5. But I did also want to make note too, that Fast Five introduces The Rock.
Yep.
And he ends up becoming a big star within this franchise. I think now he has his own spin-off
I
series,
think he's now
Hobbs and
done
Shaw.
4 total.
Yeah. And he was actually, really badass. He's actually, he's a cop. I don't want to call him a villain, but he's kind of their, secondary adversary, or like, sideways adversary. And he does a really good job. Obviously, he's The Rock and he's somewhat intimidating, but because they're making that shift to the action movie franchise, he fits right in.
Oh yeah.
And I thought the addition of The Rock was great. It brings more star power, which also, like we said, ensemble cast kind of helps, elevate the movie a little bit more, because you're like, wow, there's just so many people in this. And yeah, I can't go without mentioning The Rock, I think.
Oh, I mean, he's, Dwayne Johnson is what, the biggest movie star in the world? Yeah. So if you put him in your movie, of course it's going to be a big deal.
Yeah, right. So I think that was, obviously a really smart move as well. And yeah, I guess, just to finish off with the effects, like going all the way back to, action, obviously there's a lot more CG in Fast Five. But
Oh
if you
yeah.
go back and look at like even the first race in the original Fast and the Furious, I mean, they're using a lot of CG. It's almost shocking. How long is that race? Not in time, in distance.
I think it's again supposed to be like a quarter mile, but it's
Yeah,
like a
because
whole 10 minutes of film or
yeah, that
something.
whole scene takes like 5 minutes, and they're going like 140
And
miles
you're
an hour. I'm
seeing
like, if it's
Brian go through the nitro, and then when it breaks, and yeah, like
yeah,
you're like, wow, this is really drawn out actually.
yeah, I know. Tip of the cap as well to just Fast and the Furious introducing the masses to Nos. Like, I didn't know what that was, and then it was like a super kind of like popular thing. People always had the stickers, even if they didn't have Nos in their car, they just had like the stickers, which was always funny. So anyway, yeah, I mean the action sequences, they get a little bit more CG, but the CG was always there in the first one. I mean, even watching that little sequence, as much as I enjoy, right, them kind of going at each other and all that. I mean, how unrealistic it was. I was like,
Yeah.
that race would probably be over in like 30 seconds or
Yeah,
something.
right.
So, but it was fun, and I enjoyed it. But yeah, I think the action is just hands down better in 5 and really going forward. So
I would agree.
before we, kind of make our verdict on which one we think was better, I do want to talk to you a little bit about the story. Now, what's interesting about the stories, like I said, is the first one is like, kind of a detective story, where the newer one, Fast Five, is much more, I guess, I don't know, it's like you said, almost like a heist film,
Yeah.
like straight
Yeah.
action.
Yeah.
So which one do you think did a better job telling their story?
Well,
If it's detective story versus like heist film, which one do you think did it better?
Well, I think if you look at it that way, I think actually the Fast and the Furious is the better story. And part of it is if you've never seen any other films, the characters may feel a little flat in Fast Five. The story is very like, we're gonna go
Yeah,
rob this safe. Whereas at least the first one, right, there's kind of this, is Vin Diesel a bad guy? I'm sorry, is Dominic Toretto, is he really this criminal, or is he a guy who made a mistake in his past that is now trying to deal with the consequences? And what's the deal
right.
with Brian, who is kind of in the middle of swapping between, having to decide if is he a good cop, or is he going to let his love for Mia and his friendship with Dom get in the way, right? And we're seeing him grapple with these decisions.
Yeah. And I actually, it's weird because if I have to say which one did it better, I think, I don't know, I really actually like Fast Five as a heist film. I found it very entertaining. Um,
Mm-hmm.
the
Mm-hmm.
action sequencing and the pacing really moves the story along, and it's quite fun.
Yeah.
Once they bring the entire ensemble together, everybody's there.
Yeah.
And again, that ensemble, like you said, the characters may fall flat, but if you're a fan of the franchise, when they bring everybody together, you're like, this is awesome.
Yeah. You can't help get excited.
They have a lot of kind of jokes baked in, and a couple, nods backwards to some of the previous movies and this and that. So yeah, I found it very entertaining. And I don't know. So I guess, who did it better? I kind of have to give the nod to Fast Five. I really thought they, upped everything a notch. And then they even have the post credits scene with like a hint of like Michelle Rodriguez's
Letty coming
character.
back. Yeah.
Yeah. So like they're still doing nods backwards and all that. So I kind of found it, very fun. I don't know.
No, I would agree. And I think given the choice between the two, if I had to pick which one, who did it better, I would agree with you. I think that Justin Lin did it better in the Fast Five. I think it's everything that we love from the first four movies before it, but kind of amped up and remixed. And I think that as a Fast and Furious fan, kind of the first four movies, they don't ever hit the note quite that the first one did. And then Fast Five came out and you can't help but love it.
Yeah, the first four are also somewhat disjointed. The fourth one tries to kind of get it back on the rails, like to give it this kind of overarching, like central narrative. But Fast Five is really where it finds its tracks again and where it's back on track. So, all right, let's go ahead and do it. Verdict right now. Which one do you think did it better? The Fast and the Furious or Fast Five?
I'm going Fast Five. If I got to pick one, as I said, I'm a fan of Fast Five. There's really nothing you can complain about in that movie. It's everything you love, unless you hate Vin Diesel or The Rock or Gal Gadot or Paul Walker or something like that.
Yeah, I gotta go the Fast and the Furious, the original. And my reasoning really is just upon watching it again, realizing that I knew the songs, I knew the quotes. It had me laughing at some of the stuff that they would do, like, I don't know who wrote it, but I'm like, how funny, like, he's like, how's the tuna? I'm like, who wrote this? But it's funny. She's like, It wasn't good, yesterday, it won't be good tomorrow. So how do you think the tuna is? He's like, I'll take the tuna. Yeah. I was like, what the hell conversation is this? But they do really cool things that I was like, are fun. Like, there's a really good scene where after they have the first race, they almost get arrested and they end up back at the house. And Vince is like, you brought the Buster. And he's like, the Buster, kept me out of jail. But what was fun was there's a lot of tension in that scene, obviously between those two characters, but he like takes his beer, gives it to Brian.
Yeah.
And then Brian does like the, disrespectful thing of like cleaning it off.
Yeah.
There was all these little things that I just caught that I was like, oh, wow. I mean, this movie is having a lot of fun just being itself. So if I have to say, I have to say, that's the point of this podcast. I'm going to go the Fast and the Furious. So, all right. That was kind of fun. It's interesting because this is kind of like a new segment for us. We've never done this kind of comparison or direct comparison. But I'm looking forward to all the other remakes and sequels and reboot movies that we're going to discuss, because we've already made a list that just goes like so long. And there are a ton of episodes. And then there's a ton more stuff coming out, right? Like, you and I were talking about the fun we're going to have even this year, right? They're doing a new Space Jam. There's going to be a new Top Gun. There's going to be a Ghostbusters. There's going to be like, there's all these things. I'm like, oh man, this segment really, really gets me excited, because I'm excited to see some new movies, to rewatch some ones that I love, and, to have fun. Now, granted, sometimes the decision on which one's better might be very, very easy, because sometimes remakes are terrible. But we'll have fun discussing them nonetheless. And we really, we want to hear from the listeners. I want to hear what you guys think. Which one did it better?
Well, and we picked this film because obviously Fast F9 is coming out, and we hope that you'll go see that and share your thoughts. But let us know your thoughts between the Fast and the Furious and Fast Five. What do you like better? And we hope that you'll stay tuned and check out next week's episode. We're actually comparing two of Dustin's favorite movies, the original Terminator and Terminator 2. And we're doing that because it is going to be the anniversary of Terminator 2. So what better way to celebrate than to be watching Terminator 2 and Terminator 1?
And I can't wait to. I really I want to talk about it now because I love Terminator, but I can't even wait to.
No, you have to wait. That's next week's episode.
I know, just to acknowledge why Terminator 1 and Terminator 2 will even make this show, because there is a reason, and we'll talk about it. But before we go, really quick, I want to throw it over to you. Let's just see if you can do it. Can you name all the Fast and the Furious movies in order by their actual titles?
Okay. The Fast and the Furious, Too Fast, Too Furious, Fast and Furious, Tokyo Drift. It's actually Fast and Furious 3, Tokyo Drift. Fast and Furious, Fast 5. 6, is it?
I can't remember.
It might.
Because what's 7?
That's Furious 7.
Okay.
So is it I can't think of the 6th one. It's like Furious and Fast.
Oh my gosh.
And then 8 is Fate
F8?
of the Furious.
Oh, God.
I think.
I didn't even know that.
And then 9 is I think
F9?
it's F9. I don't actually know the real time. Okay, so I suck. I couldn't get them all. Let us know. One of you people out there is listening and you're like, well, CP doesn't know anything about movies. Why is he on a movie podcast? All right, I made a mistake. I was actually bummed. I was looking for all my Fast DVDs, but I think I lent them away. So,
well, I'm glad you found the original Fast and the Furious, because now we're doing video, so you can hold that up and everyone can see it. It's pretty classic. It's actually funny because you have the DVD, and most of the movies we're going to be watching, they're probably streaming, so we're not even going to have DVD cases or anything. So I'm glad you did that for this one. That's amazing. But
you know.
All right, we'll go ahead and wrap up the episode. I did want to say to all of our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We hope you guys enjoyed the show. Be sure to keep the conversations going on social media. You can find the podcast. We actually post it on Anchor, so the podcast should be located on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, as well as this video version on YouTube and all of our social media channels. That's at Film Comp Podcast, or you can just go to Google and type in Filmmakers Compass Podcast and we'll pop up. Bam. And
Boom.
If you want to, go ahead and follow me at Big Kid D-Man. I know, CP, we discussed that we will be live tweeting as we watch the movies, and we're bringing back the podcast. So you can follow along with us as we watch the movies, or maybe even watch them along with us.
Yes. So let us know what you think. And obviously, if you can name all the Fast and Furious movies, do it.
Yep. I want to see the list.
That's a challenge.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we'll be back with another episode of Movie Remake Time next Thursday. So keep an eye out. Look for us.
See you next week.